Siguiendo con los eventos de nuestro aniversario, nuestro 61 aniversario, ahora tenemos el gusto de formar este panel de quien ahorita presentaré. En cortesía a nuestro invitado especial Jim Brigadier, pasaremos a inglés en este momento. Lo escucharemos unos mensajes y al final el doctor León pasará una sesión de preguntas y respuestas. Okay, so as a courtesy, Jim, we're going to start speaking English, so you're not like in the fog you were a minute ago. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce the members of today's panel on technology and education. First, Mr. Gerardo Solís, Secretary of Education for the state of Baja California. And a CETIS graduate. Mr. Jose Mata, President of the Mexican Federation of Private Colleges and Universities, TIMPES, and President of Anáhuac, Puebla. Mr. Jim Brigadier, President for Global Markets at Anthology, Blackboard. And leading our panel is our President, Dr. Fernando León. In this, our 61st anniversary, we will continue to celebrate a lifetime of achievements and experiences where CETIS University has been a strong contributor towards the development of our community, fostering innovation, entrepreneurship, and the use of learning technologies. To start us off, we would like to ask Secretary Solís to deliver his message.
Muy bien, muy buenos días. Thank you for this invitation. Bien, vamos a presentar brevemente estas 75 filminas que preparé para ustedes. Se dice fácil, pero en verdad es un orgullo representar al gobierno de Baja California, nuestra gobernadora Marina del Pilar, y agradezco a su hermosa madre que esté aquí, la doctora Marina, que es testigo fiel siempre de las acciones de la educación en Baja California, y todos ustedes que representan para nosotros un motivo para seguir trabajando duro por la educación en Baja California. ¿Qué sucedió? Una pandemia donde fui testigo y tuvimos que aprobar 32 secretarios, el cierre de las escuelas en el 2020, en presencia de las más altas autoridades de CONAEDU, en presencia de los líderes sindicales, de la Secretaría de Salud y por instrucciones del presidente López Obrador. Se hace una declaratoria donde todos salimos corriendo, literal. Algunos estados cerraron en ese mismo día y otros a la semana, y fue algo que se vivió de una manera muy especial, donde nadie nos ha enseñado a trabajar bajo pandemias. Habíamos trabajado bajo terremotos, ahora huracanes, pero la pandemia fue algo mundial y fue una situación que nos puso en alerta, y quiero mencionar brevemente en esta presentación qué fue lo que hicimos como educación. Primero era saber que íbamos a utilizar las páginas de la Secretaría para transmitir mensajes, y eso fue la primera semana, y nos recluimos en nuestras casas, escondidos, con pánico, con terror, como todos, y a los 15 días te diste cuenta que no podías estar así, que tenías que regresar a la oficina y que la educación tenía que continuar. Y eso fue lo que sucedió en Baja California. La educación continuó. Entonces voy a permitirme presentar brevemente por qué Baja California utilizó las herramientas de Google for Education. Porque en ese momento, me tocó a mí iniciar el proceso de Google for Education en el 2015, y empezamos a tener correos para todos los alumnos, tenerlos documentados, empezar a tener equipamientos de Chromebook para todos ellos, y era capacitar a los maestros, y era tener los correos para los alumnos. Sí, éramos 1 millón de alumnos, y solamente el 30% activaba su correo en el 2015, 2016, 2017. Seguimos trabajando en el proyecto de Google, y los maestros no querían acceder a dar de alta su correo. Y fue ahora el detonador de la pandemia, donde pasar de un 35% de utilizar los correos se fue al 100%, en una cantidad exponencial. Somos 1 millón de alumnos, 180 países en el mundo utilizan esta plataforma, y fue lo que nosotros a través de nivel nacional nos dicen, va a haber 2 estrategias para bajar la educación a través de Aprende en Casa, que es en televisión. ¿Por qué televisión? Porque el 98% de las familias en México tienen televisión. Entonces fue un acierto haberlo hecho, sí, pero también fue un proyecto y un reto que ahora nos lo mencionan al tiempo, cómo se trabajó, y también fue un reto impresionante dar las clases en televisión. Pero nosotros ya acostumbrados a plataformas tan profesionales, yo en la universidad, desde el 2000 que soy maestro en la universidad, pues ya utilizábamos Blackboard. Ya nos capacitaban en Blackboard, pero decías, ¿cuándo lo voy a usar? Pues yo prefiero mis clases presenciales. Entonces hemos sido testigos de ser de lo presencial a lo virtual. ¿Qué pasó en esta línea del tiempo? Pues en el 2016 iniciamos con potencializar la educación a través de herramientas de Google. En el 2018 los estudiantes se convierten en aprendices autodirigidos. Autodirigidos. ¿Quién te enseñó? No sé, tú pícale ahí. Los que tuvimos que aprender fuimos nosotros, por los maestros, que fue algo extraordinario. Cómo los maestros aprendieron a utilizar las plataformas, pero los alumnos ya estaban 100% encarrilados a esta parte. En enero del 2020 se inicia el proyecto de capacitación a docentes mediante webinars. Aprendimos muchas palabras: conéctate, el Zoom, el Meet, el Blackboard, el Moodle, el Facebook, el WhatsApp. Ninguno estaba prohibido. La declaración de la educación era: utiliza lo que quieras, pero conéctate. Había maestros que ya tenían sus grupos en WhatsApp, está bien, y había muchos maestros que en Facebook. Y cuando fuimos haciendo las herramientas, se fueron conectando a la plataforma, y cuando vieron el Classroom, descubrieron el mundo de la conectividad para ofrecerle al alumno y al maestro una evidencia. Y eso es lo que tenemos registrado en las plataformas de Google, evidencias de qué pasó. Esas evidencias nos han hecho ser reconocidos a nivel internacional por el presidente de Google for Education como ser el estado número 1 en la utilización de herramientas de la educación, gracias a que los maestros y los alumnos no dejaron en un momento dado de utilizar, y bajaron considerablemente los WhatsApp y bajaron los Facebook, no estaban prohibidos, y ninguna otra plataforma. Hubo subsistemas como Conalep que utilizaba el Moodle, está bien. Hubo dependencias federales que ya trabajaban en Blackboard. La idea era que no se quedaran sin esa comunicación. Hoy por hoy tenemos certificaciones de nivel 1, nivel 2 y Google Trainers para becas que hemos adquirido. Se ha hecho una gran inversión para tener becas para que los maestros se logren certificar. Y lo que aparentemente era comprar esas licencias y esas becas se va a saturar. No es fácil tener esos niveles de adaptabilidad, hacer nivel 1 y nivel 2, mucho menos Google Trainer, que son retos extraordinarios. Los que conocen de la tecnología saben de lo que estamos hablando. Sin embargo, tenemos multiplicadores extraordinarios. Adelante. ¿Qué pasó durante la pandemia? Pues bueno, estas son las evidencias que les menciono que se registran en nuestras plataformas. 337,461 clases por semana por medio de aplicaciones de Classroom utilizadas por el 95% de los maestros en Baja California, o sea, 95%. Siempre estamos escuchando, eso siempre pasa a los años, ¿verdad? Como hoy, que hubo un rezago educativo. Por supuesto que hay un rezago en todos. Eso no lo vamos a ocultar. Pero un rezago que pudimos sostener, que no fuera un grave mayor por haber utilizado estas herramientas o porque las escuelas utilizaron algún medio, y eso permitió que la caída no fuera tan dolorosa. Sin embargo, estamos trabajando en esta parte del rezago educativo. 267 millones de correos enviados en tareas y actividades a docentes de septiembre del 2020 a marzo del 2021. 260,727 usuarios activos por día en videoconferencias en Meet para clases en línea entre docentes y alumnos. Un docente que jamás hizo un reclamo. Nadie en el estado de Baja California del magisterio hizo un reclamo de haber contribuido a la educación utilizando sus refrigeraciones, su luz, su internet. Como magisterio y como Secretaría de Educación no tuvimos ni siquiera en la mesa de trabajo que tenemos con los sindicatos, el que nos exigieran eso. Los maestros lo hicieron ¿Por qué? Porque estaban sacando adelante a sus grupos. Adelante. Entonces aquí tenemos que los que utilizan celular, computadoras y tablets son los porcentajes registrados en las encuestas. El gobierno empezó a repartir equipos a personas con mayor necesidad, tabletas, en su mayoría se eligió el sistema de Chromebook por ser más amigable y porque eran condiciones de que teníamos que guardar la seguridad de los alumnos, el utilizar el correo es seguro, el utilizar una Chromebook, el utilizar la plataforma y en ese correo no poder tener acceso a otras cosas que ya conocemos. Y entonces eso le permitía nada más trabajar en una sola plataforma. 584,000 alumnos, porque esto es de básica. Si sumamos los 128,000 de media superior y 130,000 de educación superior, más las escuelas de educación especial, centros de capacitación, pues somos un ambiente de 1 millón de alumnos el reto. 26,220 docentes y 1 millón de padres de familia. El correo en educación básica, pues no se podía permitir porque los alumnos tienen que tener 18 años y Google dijo, va por 13 y va por menos de 13 con una carta firmada por el papá, que el correo se le entrega al papá. Este es tu correo y esta es tu contraseña. Es de tu hijo, tú se lo das. Hicimos un call center porque era diario los papás, oye, dame la contraseña, usted es el dueño de la contraseña, a mi hijo se le olvidó o ya me la cambió, la continuidad en las tareas. Por eso se instrumentaron. Entonces, ¿qué tuvimos que hacer como secretaría? Evolucionar. O sea, 2 años evolucionando sin ver a los alumnos y 2 años teniendo registros de evaluaciones y 2 años de estar en el escenario de cuándo íbamos a abrir. Adelante, por favor. Entonces, los webinars fueron dirigidos a padres de familia, a esta navegación de la página a través del sistema educativo. Adelante. Ahí están lo que hicimos, webinars estatales, webinars nacionales, certificaciones, porque abríamos nuestra página y lo que nos dábamos cuenta que al hacer los webinars se conectaban también de otros países y de otros estados de la República Mexicana, siendo Baja California ejemplo de elaborar, porque para poder que un estado se regresara en el 2020 a su estado y haber instrumentado sus correos, haberlos puesto en una plataforma, que todos los papás los tuvieran, nomás que los activaran, te lleva un par de años. Entonces Baja California estaba listo. Nada más fue pedir su contraseña y activar su correo. Adelante. Entonces fue el regreso presencial ahora en febrero del 2022, el informe que se le entrega y el estado que guarda la educación se le entrega a la gobernadora, donde venía el mayor de los retos. Si el reto fue un escenario virtual, nuestro mayor reto es el que tenemos hoy, reactivar las escuelas en toda su dimensión de infraestructura educativa, después de un vandalismo brutal que nos sorprendió, que nos dejó ver que teníamos que estar preparados también para eso, pero que el terror y el temor de no salir, pues también hubo una situación ahí de vandalismo, lo cual ha hecho que el Estado haya trabajado 5 veces más en educación en cuanto a inversión de equipos de refrigeración, infraestructura educativa, porque no era robo, era vandalismo, o sea, era destruir. Y eso no lo sufrieron la mayoría de las escuelas de media superior y superior, pero en básica sí lo pasamos. Febrero fue el regreso, ahora tenemos más de 2 millones de correos enviados, 5 millones de clases activas en Classroom, 2 millones en documentos enviados, 107,000 hojas de cálculo, 242,000 en presentaciones y 40,000 en formularios. Esos son los indicadores que te marca nuestra consola del uso de las herramientas. Y eso nos los envían de Google Internacional y seguimos siendo reconocidos en ese sentido. Pues ahí están los webinars, países como México, España, Estados Unidos, Argentina, Perú y Colombia tuvieron acceso y tuvieron que solicitarnos cómo le estábamos haciendo. La secretaria de Educación, la maestra Delfina, nos pidió apoyar a otros estados como Sonora, Chihuahua, para que instrumentaran los informáticos y las personas de sistemas la rapidez que podemos tener para esta instrumentación. Muy bien. Y bien, hoy por hoy tenemos 660,000 estudiantes en educación básica y 31,000 docentes que siguen utilizando su plataforma. Adelante. Eventos, ahí estaban los eventos que hemos hecho rápidamente, la presencia, entrega de computadoras, habilidades digitales, empezamos a utilizar otro idioma en cuanto a la parte de las plataformas. Adelante. Ahí está el Día de las Habilidades, las personas que se conectaron, ya hay gran ambiente, ya hay una percepción de que si lanzas algo, el maestro está atento y los alumnos también. Adelante. Y pues el primer encuentro de Google for Education que hicimos en la ciudad de Tijuana, donde también tuvimos la presencia del director internacional. Y lo que vamos a hacer es que nos adquirimos por indicaciones de la gobernadora, a subirle el nivel y adquirimos licencias especializadas para los maestros, donde su conectividad sea masiva. Yo tengo un Meet. ¿Cuántos tienes con tu Gmail acceso? Pues 200 personas, 250. Ahora con mi nueva licencia tengo hasta 10,000. Si esto está transmitiéndose en Meet, yo puedo aspirar a que entren 10,000 personas simultáneamente en vivo, y eso es lo que estamos haciendo ahora, utilizándolas como centros de innovación educativa, donde seleccionamos a maestros para decir, tú eres especialista en matemáticas, sí, pero nomás quiero suma y resta. Nada más suma y resta. Ten tu correo y te vamos a conectar con 3,000, 5,000, 2,000, los que sean nominados, tú los vas a tener en escenarios específicos. Ahora vamos por esa recuperación a través de las herramientas. Adelante. Y bueno, pues la colaboración conjunta, estamos trabajando capacitando a formadores, sé genial en la red, cómo navegar de manera fácil y segura, y capacitación en webinars y en sala Google que tenemos ahí. Hicimos una vinculación con los ayuntamientos. Estamos rescatando 96 bibliotecas que tiene el Estado. Por indicaciones me dijo la gobernadora, ¿qué vas a? Haz lo que tengas que hacer, es su frase, pero hazlo bien. Es la segunda. 96 bibliotecas estamos habilitando como salas Google. 3 museos, Museo del Sol, Museo del Trompo, Museo Ensenada, centros de maestros. Todos esos van a tener escenarios, los centros de bienestar de los municipios, donde un papá puede enviar a su hijo y va a haber un multiplicador ahí, va a haber un asesor, va a haber un tutor para darle continuidad, porque nosotros tenemos que alcanzar a esos jóvenes y darles ese aprendizaje que no lograron tener. Muchas gracias por su atención, y esas son las acciones que hemos tenido como gobierno.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Now, I would like to introduce one of our guests of honor, Mr. Jim Brigadier. A brief bio on Jim. As president of Global Markets, Jim believes in the transformative empowerment that education provides. Throughout his 22-year career in education technology, his leadership philosophy has always centered on forging strong relationships with people to achieve collaborative goals with a shared purpose in mind. In his previous role at Anthology, Jim served as Chief Revenue Officer, leading a field operations team in the Americas and UK, where he was responsible for all aspects of client experience and satisfaction, revenue growth, expansion, sales results, and he previously led professional and managed services team during a 5-year high growth period. Before entering the education technology and services business, Jim spent 9 years in the U.S. Marine Corps as an intelligence officer, serving both domestically and abroad. Jim graduated cum laude with a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of South Carolina, has a master's in business administration from Auburn University, and a certificate in sales management from the University of Chicago. Anthology is a global enterprise which assists higher education institutions move forward and be successful by using technology and cloud-based services that help students stay at the vanguard of learning and achievement. Based on a connected, data-driven experience, Anthology solutions provide operational efficiencies, insights for improved decision-making for management and academics, empowering institutional leaders to support and guide students in their path to success. Anthology's applications cover enrollment management, student retention and success, institutional effectiveness and learning, alumni and university advancement, offering solutions to the challenges currently faced by universities. Working with over 2,000 institutions in over 30 countries, Anthology constantly delivers new ways of changing and improving higher education. Jim, where's yours? You want to come here? Okay.
Great introduction. Appreciate it. Right. It's very nice. All right. And I'm going to go a little bit off script. So can I, is somebody going to advance the slides? Is that, we have the slides pulled up? Okay. No problem. That was great. Secretary of Education, that was fantastic. I didn't understand any of it. However, it was delivered with such passion, I would sit through it 3 more times. Seriously, that was amazing. So I do want to go a little bit off script because I wanted to talk to you about kind of like the advent of digital technology and kind of where Anthology has formed itself and why we're positioned to really support citizens throughout Mexico, the region, Latin America, et cetera. Let me say a couple of things. Since we formed a new company called Anthology, and it was really, Anthology, if you don't know the word, it's really a collection of the best. You might have some albums or some books or some poetry that's anthology. We viewed Anthology as a collection of the best. It's a relatively new brand that brings together some of the best education technology companies in the industry. Blackboard, which is what you're familiar with, campus management, which is the part I came from, which is the ERP, the SIS, and the CRM. If you don't know all these three-letter acronyms, just like the LMS, I'm sure you can come up with some more here before the end of the day. But it also comes with a lot of other solutions that are really student-driven or student-centric, and that's what it's all about. And you have to have that passion. We've been together for, as a company, Anthology, 11 months. We have 150 million users that we support around the globe. And if we were a country, we'd be the 8th largest. But we're catching up to Pakistan very quickly, who's number 7. But really, you have to have the passion here, because no matter what technology you bring, and you all know that because you bring it, and that's why I'm here, because our technology is in 4,500 higher education institutions around the globe. Why am I here? I'm here a lot because of the way you're using it and leveraging it for the greater good of your campus. At the end of the day, technology is only as good as the people behind it and the way you implement it, the way you use it, and the way you leverage it, and the way you continue to advance technology. And I can tell you, we all have great passion that why we're in the room, to advance education around the globe. And I can tell you it chokes me up. In the last 6 months, I mean, when we see, I just came last week from Saudi Arabia, and women 4 years ago couldn't drive. Did you know that? And they couldn't shop without a male right next to them. With the pandemic, 2,200% increase for women going to school. I got a daughter, I got a wife. That's just fantastic. 2,200%. Because of what technology brings, right? Or when I went to India and Bangalore, and there's a big Coliseum, and there's 15,000 people wrapped around the Coliseum. And I asked the driver, what's going on there? Speaking of Google, Google was in town. Google had 100 internship openings. 15,000 people came out for that. So stop and think about it. We're fortunate. I live in Dallas. So we're neighbors, right? Mexicali, across the border, El Centro, it's all the same. We're all the same. We're advancing education. The world doesn't all have that. You know, recently our CRM touched and reached out to an individual who has a mobile phone in the Amazon, an indigenous person in the Amazon. Indigenous people do have phones. And this person walked a day and a half to get to a testing center so he can test to take courses at Positivo. That's the kind of difference you're making and we're making together. And so you have rural people out there that are looking, their parents maybe were divorced, or they didn't have parents, or the parents never went to school. You have a chance to reach them and touch them. And that's what technology does. So I'm really, really impressed by what you're doing, and thank you for the mission that you're fulfilling. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right. So Latin America. So we call Latin America, or LAC, Latin American Caribbean. This is a big high growth opportunity for us. It's obviously a continent or region that's growing very precipitously, but it's one that embraces education. And that's what, for us, what it's all about. And we've got several successes already. I mentioned one along the Amazon in Brazil, but also DUOC system in Chile. We're doing great things with their digital skills with public teachers. We're doing great things in the Caribbean with the Dominican Republic. I mean, we're finding people that don't have opportunities. And I applaud you. What really caught my attention when I met with Dr. Garcia in Orlando was, and I said this in the previous hour, but 3 months into his presidency, there's a major travesty here. And you took advantage of the fact that it was a tragedy. We lost lives, but we can't just sit there and be idle. We move forward, and digitally, you transform the campus to prepare yourself so that when we finally arrived at the pandemic, you were prepared. This college was ready. This institution was ready. And that's a big thing. But what's next? And we got to keep moving forward. So if you go to the next slide, I told you I'm going to kind of ad-lib this thing a little bit because I want to show you where we've come from. So we have over 4,500 institutions. We were serving K-12 as well. We just sold that business last week, as a matter of fact. So those dollars are being invested back into the solutions. We've invested more than 4 times what in Learn, that's the LMS you're using, than we have in the previous 5 years, in the last 8 months. So we've advanced the ball considerably. And as I mentioned, we've got presence now in 87 countries. And so there are clients and there are partners. And SETIS is absolutely a strong partner because of the innovative nature that you all have. And the faculty have been stellar. And I know that through the pandemic. So thank you. We can go to the next slide. All right. So I want to kind of take you back a little bit about kind of our vision and our mission. So when we first came together 11 months ago, we brought these values to the forefront. We actually had several different committees within the organization. We went out to some of our client base. We were really trying to pull in our values. You can see client centricity, getting out there for us and visiting with the clients is important. You have your values. This is what's driving us right now. And we've got KPIs behind all of it, something we never had. And it's kind of refreshing for education technology. We can go to the next slide. So we're not only passionate about what we do, but the mission we're trying to achieve. You're going to hear from me in a little bit. Let me just kind of give you the spoiler alert. The student information system is the backbone of most any institution, along with, I would say, the heartbeat, which is the LMS, which you have with us. No vendor has ever brought those two together, ever. And for the first time, I mean, company's been trying this for 20 years, and we brought it together. And so what does that mean? Intelligent experiences. It means all the data you need on your student is already in the systems. We just have to be able to couple it and grab it, extract it, and allow you to make those decisions. So for example, what you're going to see in the future, and by the way, where I come from, campus management, the ERP sys and the CRM, we are essentially Microsoft's go-to in that space. Microsoft doesn't have a sys. They rely on us. It's on Azure. Microsoft doesn't have a finance HR solution in higher education. They rely on us. It's Microsoft Dynamics with our intellectual property, our IP code on top, delivered in Azure. Same with the CRM. They're counting on us. And I think Microsoft, everybody knows, is like Google is pretty large. And so imagine in the future, and I'm not talking like, 200 years from now. I'm talking in less than 24 months. Imagine being able to reach every single student at his or her own way, at the experience that they need. And we can project and have predictive modeling. Imagine when a student needs help. How do you get them help? Where do you get them help? How do you reach out to them? Is it text? Is it email? Is it a phone call? Is it a male voice? Is it a female voice? Is it a recording? When they need help, do you send them a recording of maybe a classroom, or do you send them materials? All those things, everybody's predisposed to something like that. Believe it or not, you probably are as well. And so I will tell you, I'll give you a good example. Some of you, I know most of you are on your 30s, I can tell, but there's a few of you might be pushing 50. I'm over 50. And I can tell you, when you go to a doctor, do you really want to walk up to a doctor that looks like him? He's on my team. It's okay. Look how young this guy is. If I walk in and I'm going to have major surgery and I look at, sorry, Sebastian. If I look at Sebastian, I'm going to turn and say, no, I want Martine. They'll get me back later. But you want somebody with experience, right? And it's the same thing sometimes when students reach out, they want support, and it comes from different sides. So we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to take you for a little bit of a walk back. Some of you remember this back from 1960 through really 1990. It was an era called retrofitting. So retrofitting, if you remember that, it's kind of, this will give you context to where we're going. So this is back in the mainframe days. Anybody remember what a mainframe is? Okay, this is back in mainframe days. So education used technologies such during this phase, and look how many decades it lasted. It lasted 3 decades, but education used this to really gain a space inside of the learner experience, but it didn't really touch on anything individual. It just kind of was high level, right? It didn't go into anything that was personalized. This phase took place over 30 years. And we can go to the next slide. So during this retrofitting stage or era, you'll see this is what some of the big inventions were back then. The next slide will show you. There we go. Everybody remember the overhead projector, how advanced that was. Some of you don't even know what it is. So I got to tell you real quick, I live in a gated community in Dallas, and we had a party for my son's graduation class many, many years ago, like 6 years ago. And we had to give the gate code out. And my wife was telling everybody to get in, it's 2468 pound. And she kept getting phone calls, and people kept saying, Mrs. Brigadier, I don't know what pound is. She says, what do you mean you don't know what pound is? It's hashtag, right? 2468 hashtag. I don't know if some of you older people like me get it. All right. So anyways, this was the overhead projector. Next, if you can keep rolling, the audio recorder. Remember this one? List goes on. Photo carousels. You'll see a photo carousel. Remember that? This was big time advanced. Yeah, you're nodding your head. And then the calculator. I think we have a calculator. We're all laughing, but like this was big time technology back then. This was the advent of big stuff, right? So, and I'll pause for a minute. When I really wanted to get into education, and specifically this company that I've been in for some time, I'm going to tell you why for a moment. I was fortunate to go to undergraduate, but then I went in the Marine Corps for 9 years, and I got out and I interviewed with the company I wanted to be in ed tech. And the guy that wanted to hire me said, I don't want to hire this guy. He doesn't know anything about technology. He's been in the Marine Corps. What does he know about software? And he ended up capitulating, and he said, okay, you can hire him because he has an MBA. In other words, I got hired not because of my skill or because I knew how to spell software or whatever the case was. I couldn't even spell IT probably, right? That's a Marine Corps joke after I left the Marine Corps. But what I can say though is, but he said I have an MBA. So he must have some intelligence. Here's why it resonated with me. Because it took me 4 years to get my MBA, and I did it through the graduate outreach program in Auburn. I was a distant ed student, and they recorded back in those days the class on VHS. I know most of you remember VHS, and they sent it to you, and then I had to watch the classroom, and I'd watch it for some of them were 2.5 hours, and then I would have to go to a base sponsored proctor to take the test. And I did that while I was on a ship. While I was studying, while I was in a jungle in Panama. I was in Okinawa, Japan. I was on deployment. I was in the desert, not far from here. I mean, so when you have to do that over 4 years of hard work, you know what a distance ed student goes through. It's not the same as being in front of the classroom and in front of an instructor. So I wanted to fit into that mold nicely, and that's why I'm here. All right. So if we can go to the next phase. The next phase after retrofitting is called the emergence phase. And you'll remember these more so than you will retrofitting, right? So we can go, we'll go, here's the key thing. 30 years was retrofitting. Emergence now is shrinking, right? Because technology moves faster. And you can go to the next slide. We saw the emergence here in this phase of really high-tech stuff. Whiteboards, right? Personal computers open the door, design things for learning around the student's journey. And the CRMs entered the market, and the LMS was conceptualized and delivered for the first time in 1997, introduced by Blackboard in the global market. And then lastly, even registering for classes, you remember some of these things as far as paying bills, and they did very basic things. This was the next 20 years to 2010. And then we go into proliferation. So we can go to the proliferation slide, which is next. This is where innovation took on new speed. And with personal devices. It also is where digital technology started having a foothold, and tools were disparate. They didn't work together. So you have an LMS and you have a student information system as an example, or you have a CRM, but they're not connected. You've got to make sure they're well integrated so they can give you some data, but not quite there. And if we can go to the next slide. So this is the phase we're now leaving. And then around 2010, by the way, smartphones and e-readers became common. Remember how popular that was. The App Store started presenting new technologies. And then, of course, at the very end of the phase here was the pandemic. And that's where things really started taking off. And we had to start looking at something different to catch the next phase and make sure that we're not going to fall behind. More importantly, how do we bring education to the masses and the students across the globe? So in the next slide. So here's what I would say. These students right here have grown up in an interconnected world. We know that. This might look like a family out at dinner right now in a restaurant, right? And they expect content and they expect things customized right there for them. They don't want to be treated like a number anymore. They want to be treated like personalized, like you almost can take the number of students you have, which almost seems impossible, and deliver personalized content at their time and convenience. And the solutions we have delivers in all academic modalities, you know, competency-based education, for example, micro-credentialing, and all academic flavors, and delivered in all the different financial aid and student information system course registration courses. No matter if you change or if you keep the same, whether you go trimesters, 4 semesters, or sorry, 4 quartiles a year, or if you go into 2 semesters, if you change or your modality changes, if you take courses different days of the week, it can address all of that. And so what's next really comes to the holistic phase. If we go to the next slide. So this is where it's starting to emerge. And this is where this is all telling you, why did we form as Anthology? We formed that as Anthology because this was an opportunity going forward post-pandemic to really take the insights that we received and the 35 years that we had as a company, in the case of Blackboard, about 25, and look at ways to aggregate the data to provide this to your fingertips. We have to play in an agnostic environment, so we're not saying you have to invest in all our technologies, but what you have invested in with our LMS is done pretty well by you, and you've even grown during a pandemic, which is pretty impressive, actually. So this is a new company. Our strategic purpose in mind is to rip down barriers across the institution, to provide the capabilities so that learner and educator can come together and at the end of the day, transform lives. And so this is a single company called Anthology, and we're not done growing. We're focused razor sharp in one particular area, and that's all around the student. That's what you're going to see. And we've tripled our investment, as I mentioned previously, just in the Learn Ultra solution, just over the last 8 or 9 months. And we continue to do so. And if you notice, was anybody in Orlando for Anthology Together that we just had back in July, besides the president? It was quite impressive on where we're going, and we're already showing early indications of that. If you think about jobs too, who owns LinkedIn? Anybody know what company now owns LinkedIn? Microsoft. So again, I mentioned we're the Global Education Partner of the Year just a few years ago with Microsoft. They're obviously very prevalent. We are their go-to around SIS and ERP and CRM. When you couple that with what we've got right now at our fingertips, we've got some really unique opportunity all the way through fundraising and alumni solutions. So I would say, you can go to the next slide. So these are our solutions right now between teaching and learning, which is what you're focused on here around the Learn Ultra. We have enterprise operations, that's the student ERP and CRM, and lifecycle engagement as well, which really from the time a student first starts looking at the institution all the way through the alum and fundraising, we really support the lifecycle engagement of the student. A little bit about us, because people keep thinking, what is Anthology and why did you buy Blackboard? It wasn't a buy of Blackboard. Anthology was acquired by a PE firm, private equity firm in the US called Veritas Capital, which owns us. They're the 4th largest PE firm in the US. They're very wealthy. They're focused not exclusively, but near exclusively on education. And they want us to bring these concepts that we have now and to realization. So you can see how far we've come during these 3 phases over the course of the last 60 years. And you can imagine how much faster we're going to have to move in the next phase, because the next time the pandemic comes here, the next time some tragedy occurs, we've got to be prepared because students are counting on it. And I know it's the same here. The Great Resignation is upon the world. And I can tell you, there are so many job opportunities right now, and they're there for the seizing, but you just have to the students have to be prepared. And these soft skills can be acquired through these technologies as well, because we can identify who needs help and where. And I go back to, I'll kind of conclude it with Saudi Arabia as an example, what they're doing. And I'm picking on Saudi Arabia because I was just there and it was so moving and some of the things that they're doing. They actually 4 years ago kicked out all the foreign nationals who were doing technical vocational jobs in the country because they wanted to make it uniquely theirs. The problem was they didn't predict the pandemic. And then they really struggled infrastructurally in a big way. So now what they're trying to do is they're trying to ramp their technical vocational number of students that graduate in a particular year with a certificate or a degree from 250,000 to 500,000 in the next 3 years. And as they do that, they feel like they can bring back the backbone of their economy. And they're doing that through this technology that you're already using, Learn, and they're about to invest in our student information system and the CRM to reach a lot of their indigenous people, because they have, like anywhere else, a lot of rural populations. So there's so much we can do. At the end of the day, here's what it takes. It takes technology. We know that. I think we beat that one to death. But it takes passionate people. This is what makes you stand out. This is why I'm here. It's not because you're one of a lot of institutions and 25,000 in Latin America, Caribbean. It's because of what you're doing with it, how you leverage us as a partner, how we can leverage you as a partner, and how together we can bring education to all those that need it and give better quality of lives to that single mother of 3 or that divorced dad with 2 children that has, no hope in the world until education comes their way, and we can bring it to them. So thanks for having me today, and I appreciate you listening.
Okay, thank you, Jim, for your presentation. Moving on with the program, we would now like to introduce Mr. Jose Mata, President of FIMPES, the Mexican Federation of Private Universities, and President of the University of Anáhuac, Puebla. Since beginning his tenure at Anáhuac, Puebla, Mr. Mata has fostered the development of technology and university infrastructure while increasing enrollment in the undergraduate and graduate programs, as well as continuing education. He has fostered the Anáhuac Leadership and Social Action Programs, internationalization, strategic alliances in the political, business, and social sectors. He has strengthened the university's Catholic identity and has achieved breakthroughs in academic quality and leadership, reaching agreements with both national and international academic institutions. He was elected to the governing board of Ceneval for the 2022-2023 period. CETIS has been certified by FIMPES for more than 20 years and was the first institution in the state to do so. So, without further ado, Mr. Mata, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think I'm going to do it from here since everybody's been standing up. And first of all, thank you again for the invitation, Fernando. It's a pleasure to be here. And I don't have a presentation, but I have the ideas that I want to share with you. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that as a teacher, I'm also a teacher, I think we all have the diagnosis correct. We all know what happened. We all know how we suffered. We all know how hard it was to have class at 7 a.m. and imagine your students because nobody would turn their cameras on. And so we had to struggle a little bit. But now I think what we have to focus at this time of the pandemic should be on what we've learned. And as President León Garcia said earlier today, we had the chance to visit several universities last week. We had extraordinary conversations at MIT, at Harvard, at Southern New Hampshire. And the good thing was that we are all asking the same questions. And we are all looking for the same answers, probably getting closer to them or not. But we're all on the same pathway to see what comes next after what we have lived. So I think I'm going to try to share like 3 or 4 important ideas. Then I'm going to share some learnings that I think we've come to and try to see if we can agree on what will be the next phase that we're going to be facing. The first idea would be, for me, as a learning, would be that technology and pedagogics are important, both. Technology is a great instrument. Like Jim just said, we're going to need it. Actually, most of us already have it, but I'm not sure if we know how to use it. So that's a thing that we have to be thinking about. But again, the way we teach, the way we are trying to reach our students is something new for us. As we just saw at Jim's presentation, most of us are, we're not digitally born. We've been traveling and learning along the way. So I think we have to focus on the engagement we have with students. Technology is good for some things, and having the students nearby, being present, is good in some other ways. So again, technology and the way we do things, the pedagogía behind it, let me say it in Spanish, it's really as important as technology. That's one idea. The second idea I'd like to share is that we need to put equal pressure into content and community. The content, of course, we need to be developing different contents. As we just said, we need to be ready for whatever comes next. And all of us here, and whoever is a teacher, can understand that. The content that was taught, or we were teaching at universities, at Mexican universities 5 years ago, necessarily needs to be changed. Necessarily. I'm not sure if it's fit for today's demands. But again, having the same attention on the community is very important. What do I mean by that? Tracking students' performance, seeing how they're doing. I like what you just said, Jim. We're not talking about just numbers. We're talking about persons. We're talking about individuals. We're talking about families behind those individuals. And those individuals are not only students, are teachers, professors, and all the people that come together in a community like in a university. So those ideas are very important to have. The third one would be, the idea would be that accessibility is something we've discovered for most of us. Technology helps us to reach out further to many students who couldn't come on a physical basis, on a regular basis, to our universities here and everywhere around the country. So this is the learning that we have. This is part of what we've discovered, part of the ideas we have. But then another thing that we have learned about digital transformation is that this digital transformation does not only concern to the classroom or to the teaching process. It also has to do with many institutional processes. You have to have digital transformation at the library, at the student events life. Tienes que tener transformación digital en la caja, and in many other places in order to really become a digitalized university. It's not only the teaching process. The outcomes of what we learn, I would try to gather them in some other ideas. One of them will be collaborating. Collaboration wasn't in the picture as much as it is now. Talking to other universities, talking to peers, having the chance to, using technology, to have long conversations with people from other countries, different cultures, or probably just your neighbor. But collaborating now is more important than ever because we are all looking for the same answers. If we all have this vocation of serving our students the same way we want to have their lives transformed. The second learning would be we need to be more data-driven. We didn't take data seriously before. I mean, we would send student informations to our deans or to our student, or sorry, to our professors. And well, yeah, they read it and just had some ideas. But now, when you have so much data, so much statistics, as Jim just said, the information is already there. Now the challenge is how to use it, how to interpret it, and how to take decisions with that information. So collaboration, data-driven. Another learning is that teachers, again, have to be at the center. Yes, we focused a lot on students, but in order to serve our students, we need teachers again at the center. When we were at MIT last week, there was a professor in the room who said the hardest people to teach in our university is the faculty. And I think he's right. And the thing is that teachers, if there are any teachers here, you have to learn. You have to be open to so much different new ways to do what you already do well. So again, teachers need to change. Teachers need to be at the center. And the last learning I think we've understood has been flexibility and agility are necessary at some stages we're going to need so much flexibility instead of supervision. No? We need to have enough balance in that. And my final three ideas will be, what do I think we should keep in mind for the future? The first one is going to be to keep enhancing an innovative culture in the university. And innovation can be seen in many different areas. For example, there's innovation of a product. What do you need to change in order to make it a better product? There's innovation in systems in order to make that product leaner or make the system leaner, and make it more efficient and save costs in the way you produce things. What are we going to innovate in our products? What are going to be innovating in our systems? And there's innovation of institutions, institutional innovation. So those are three areas that we need to keep in mind to have a really innovative culture. The second recommendation, I think, is going to be, Jim's going to like this one, because we all need to make good investments in technology. Yes, we do. And we need to make investments of understanding the world. Teachers here, if you don't have an Instagram account, you're really far away from where the party is taking place. If you don't have a Facebook account, if you don't have LinkedIn, there's a whole new place where the conversations are taking place. So you need to have enough investment in technology, and of course, enough investment in content in order to make it personalized. And third, I would say we need to be open to so many possibilities that are ahead of us. I think that's a way of understanding education, a way of understanding the challenges we might be facing in the future. But never forget the mission. And I would be closing with this. We all share the mission of trying to change the world by changing our students, by changing our teachers. But the first change that has to be made is upon ourselves. If we want to be really much better persons, if we want to understand and use all the means that are around us, use the technology, use our institution in order to serve others. We cannot forget our mission, which is what makes us thrive when we really love it and we're passionate about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Mata. And now President Leon will lead the Q&A session with our panel. Sí.
No, you can use that. Because I'll be directing the questions to you. Okay. I think before we start, and just so that you can have some time, to think about it, I'll first inquire whether any of you have any comments regarding what each other presented. But just as background information, because sometimes you hear names, you don't know the context. But I'll mention that Grupo Positivo from Brazil is one of the largest groups. At least 10 years ago, they were almost at 500,000 learners, as far as I recall. It's a system of post-secondary institutions in Brazil, just like Objetivo and just like Grupo Croton. So it's important to know. Duoc UC, very interesting, because this used to be, take note, some of the folks here at CETIS, this used to be the nascent continuing education arm of Universidad Católica de Chile. Now they have over 10 campuses. Last time I recall, they had over 60,000 students, maybe more. They're larger than Universidad. Yeah. So they're larger than Universidad Católica de Chile. And you see many examples like that. You have Chapman University that had a spinoff that's now called Brandman University. And so in any case, I think it is important for those of you who are students of higher education to have this context. But in any case, let's start this Q&A session just to see whether you have any questions or comments concerning what each of you presented. Any comments to Secretary Solis? Any comments to the presentation that President Brigadier made or the President Mata made? And then I have a few questions here for you. So need not worry. But any reaction from what you heard from each other?
Thank you. I'd like to ask the Secretary, ¿qué tan difícil fue instaurar una cultura digital en un universo que generalmente se había desarrollado mucho más en un esquema, digamos, tradicional? Me parece que fue un brinco cualitativo muy importante el utilizar una herramienta y una plataforma de esta naturaleza.
Voy a responder literal algo que he venido trabajando durante más de 20 años. La cultura del mexicano, de los mexicanos, pues es muy arraigada. Y nos dicen, hay que cambiar a la cultura de la calidad. Ahí estábamos con la cultura de la calidad, la cultura de la evaluación. Y hay otras voces que dicen, ¿cuánto vamos a tardar en cambiar la cultura del mexicano en muchos otros aspectos? Uno de ellos es lo que usted me acaba de preguntar, la tecnología. Y la respuesta es imposible. En México, para cambiar su cultura es muchos años. Yo digo que no, porque aquí en la frontera, al hacer fila para pasar a Estados Unidos, si haces media hora de fila, pues en media hora cambia tu cultura. Ya no tiras basura, ya te pones el cinturón, ya pones el niño en el asiento de atrás y ya ves el letrero que dice $10,000 por tirar basura. Entonces tarda media hora o tal vez más, una hora, porque ya las filas son más amplias. La forma de medir la cultura, que iniciamos el proceso de la parte digital con la instrumentación de los correos, pues primero fue interna porque había que habilitar de correos y luego explicarles a los alumnos y a los maestros y luego condicionar a los maestros a que cada evento como este que hacía la Secretaría no podías pasar si no te dabas de alta tu correo. O sea, era una condición. Entonces hacíamos eventos de colegiados, de supervisores, inspectores, directivos. Era un terror, pero para otros era un ánimo extraordinario agarrar la tableta y poner tus datos y tener un correo, pero no se activaban. Entonces Google nos decía, ya tienes 700,000 cuentas, y yo, viva, no, actívalas. Y esa parte es la que les mencionaba, esa cultura que tuvimos que ir haciendo de que es que me van a intervenir mi correo, es que vas a ver lo que yo pongo. Pues no ponga nada, maestra, le digo, pues, o sea, úselo para las tareas, ¿no? Pues sí. Si no quieres que vean lo que pones, pues no lo pongas. Entonces, la parte específicamente del cambio de cultura fue una inmediatez asombrosa. No hubiera habido tiempo de capacitar a más de 45,000 docentes. No hubo tiempo de capacitar a 1,000,000 de padres de familia, bueno, 1,000,000 de alumnos que ya estaban entrados en capacitación. Pero nosotros significamos 1,000,000 de alumnos por papá y mamá, son 3 millones de personas que estamos impactando en el estado. Entonces el papá era el que más tenía que tener un ejercicio de esta parte del cambio. Para mí fue una inmediatez asombrosa, fue algo extraordinario, cómo ver las gráficas de 33% de activación a 95%. ¿Y por qué no fue el otro 5%? Teníamos estadísticas con los que hacíamos que el 88% de los maestros hacían alguna conexión con el alumno, alguna. Y el otro 12%, que significaban más de 70,000 alumnos, ¿qué hacían? Bueno, son los que todavía tenemos en escenarios que no tienen un internet, pero tenemos que ir con un cuadernillo a entregarles a sus escuelas y a sus casas el documento. Pero lo que favoreció fue que la cultura se metió en las venas como una necesidad, y el maestro hoy por hoy ya tiene ahora ya te dice hasta cosas que, ¿y cuál aplicación voy a usar? Ya tienen otro vocabulario. Entonces, la respuesta, como decimos los mexicanos, cuando te pregunten, responde nomás lo que te preguntaron, ¿verdad? No nos agarramos, pero respuesta inmediata. Es asombrosa el tiempo en el que un maestro le dio un clic y tomó el control de las herramientas en todos los sentidos.
Jim, any question or comment on the others? Or if not, then.
I do like your comments though about the data-driven decisions. That's so important. I think sometimes we get away from that. At the end of the spear, there's a person, but if we don't have data to help inform and make those decisions, then we can't have technology be leveraged in the right way. So I think that was spot on.
Good. I think that right now what we've heard is from several that, or all of our speakers, that ingrained into what we do and how we move forward is some effort to innovate. Of course, when you think about the Mexican way of doing it, you have some very profound reflections. As a previous politician used to say, the deep, profound Mexican philosophy, a ver qué sale, ahí se va, ya pa' qué. So the deep and profound Mexican philosophy, let's see what happens. Let it roll, too late. In any case, I think that it's important to try to put into perspective not what has happened, which all of you have described, but what will stick. Because one thing is to act based on emergency, and it was proven that although education in general is slow to react, it did respond. But the question, I think, is that all of those innovations that were done, many apparently were just for the instance, others experimented. The question is, what of all of that do you see sticking? What things after the pandemic do you think are going to lead to some changes in the way we do things, in the way we teach, in the way we learn, in the way we support learning as such? And any comments on this? Because I think that's the biggest question on the horizon. We survive. What's next? Are we simply going to forget what we did and return to normalcy? Or are there actual changes that we're going to implement in the universities? There are many opinions on this, but I'd like to see whether Jose or Jim or Secretary Gerardo would like to comment on this.
That's a great question. I think I think what's going to stick is personalization. I think if you go back in institutions 25, 30 years ago, it was really all about the institution. You know, you need to come to me. We're the institution. This is how we operate. Maybe we'll accept you. maybe you'll be fortunate enough to attend. But I think now, I mean, students have choices, and it's not just in Baja California. It can be all over the world. Your students don't have to go here. They can get degrees anywhere they want. And so I think what's important is if you're going to continue to grow as a fine institution, I think you have to continue to meet the students on their the personalization side and at their needs, as almost as if they're the only person in the room or the only student in the institution. And I think that's not going to go away. So I think we've got to continue to focus on how we can refine that through technology, but also the way we interact with the student as well. And I'm going to give you one concern that I have, that I actually thought about this recently in the last couple of weeks. And this is just coming from me, and I haven't even read anything on this. I'm sure there's articles out there. The pressures right now on the institutions are immense. So, I mean, I can tell you the board members put a lot of pressure on presidents. Gustavo, I didn't mean that about you, not this board member, but the American board members. But board members put a lot of pressure to succeed and to compete for the students, right? And there's a lot of new presidents that come in and they want to be presidents. Maybe they came up through the academic side and they're new to it. And there's really no I'll call it teaching and learning for them. There's no really onboarding for most presidents. They have to learn as they go through, but board members have been recently, and if it's a privately held institution, could be a PE firm, it could be a CEO that owns it or individual proprietor, but there's so much pressure that's put on presidents. And I know you've been here 12 years, so you've established yourself, although you never really, you always have to be on your game, right? But there's so much pressure. And here's why I'm saying this is bad. It's not that it's bad, because competition is good. We got to get better. But I'm seeing a lot of presidents and senior academics as well. They're tired. They're just tired. I mean, I know nobody here is tired because it's going swimmingly well, but you get to places where somebody had a mindset, I'm going to retire in 2030. And now they're like, well, maybe next year, 2023, I can do this. I don't need to be full-time, or I'll be an adjunct faculty member. I'll go somewhere else. And so I worry about some burnout. And I say that because at the same time, we need more personal attention given to that personalization, not just through technology. People need to be mentored. Presidents need to be mentored, faculty and administration. And it feels like we're losing a lot of good people because they're just burned out. And you can't blame them. I mean, the pandemic was not easy. It was taxing. I mean, I heard a story last night at dinner about one of your faculty members that was, very concerned because in this case, you could get away, you could drive to the office, and this is your office, but all of a sudden now everything's under one roof and it's hard to manage. You have no more personal space, speaking of personalization. So I don't know. I don't have the answer. I'm just bringing up a problem for everybody here to solve. But essentially, how do you get more personalized for the student when it is going to require student interaction, but at the same time, so many really astute, smart, intelligent faculty, administration staff, presidents are resigning or they're leaving early, and we're losing good talent. That's going to be a struggle.
Okay. Jose?
I'll just say that I would add to that. I totally agree. I'm not that tired yet. But I would say that one of the things that I think they're going to stick is the culture change. This idea that nothing is forever. That's something that we've learned. We all had these ideas before that our careers were going to be really long and not that changing one-man company, those ideas we used to have. So now I think nothing is forever. Everything can be improved. That's another idea. I mean, we just remember, like the secretary said, remember the first month of the pandemic. We did things one way. Remember a year later, we had so much improvement from the starting point. And the third idea, I would say that not everything can be changed from night to day. It's a process. So that mindset, I think, has to stick in order to be ready for whatever comes next.
Secretario, ¿algún comentario?
Let me try in Spanish. I'm sorry about my English, but I understand. Yes, thank you very much. Tratando de entender la parte del after pandemic, les voy a hacer una breve testimonio muy fuerte que tenemos en este momento. Hoy en la mañana, anoche, hablando con personas líderes de comunidades. La educación en México va, y se lo he comentado al rector porque fue uno de los primeros que yo recurrí para asistir a un evento nacional donde la transformación en México se va a dar a nivel nacional, no por reforma, sino por una transformación que requiere el país. Cuando le envío, si me permite, ¿no? Pues le envío todo el contenido de la transformación, le digo, dime qué opinas. A la doctora Marina le digo, dime su opinión. Y no se la digo ahorita, se la digo, de hecho, hace 20 años que le vengo compartiendo documentos a la doctora Marina. O sea, no es una situación de coincidencia, sino es alguien que yo tengo mis consentidos de los que me apoyan y requiero cierta asesoría. Y les digo, ¿qué va a pasar? ¿Cómo ves esto? ¿No? Entonces, la transformación en México habla que antes en México era el alumno al centro y toda la educación, el alumno al centro. Después era la escuela al centro. Hoy por hoy esa transformación te exige que sea la comunidad al centro. O sea, Sin la comunidad no vamos a poder salir. Sin esa comunidad que también, don Gustavo, requiere la comunidad empresarial, la comunidad de las aportaciones, la comunidad de padres de familia. Por más escuela privada que seas de alta eficiencia, no salimos sin la comunidad. Dos grandes líderes, para mí en este momento, porque hay muchos, de unas comunidades que si ustedes conocieran, es impresionante el reto que tiene hoy por hoy el gobierno de atender. Y hablando de lo que decías, vas aquí a una colonia en Mexicali y vas a otra a Tijuana, en el mismo contexto donde los niños quieren estudiar. Y si ya no hay cupo, tengo que proveer con el gobierno que tengan cupo. El llamado es que todo el mundo se reintegre en la educación. Es que me quedé en cuarto semestre de la ingeniería en el CETIS, que te tienen que aceptar y te tienen que poner un tutor y tienes que retomar. Es que en la normal me quedé sin estudiar, me embaracé y regrésate. Eso nos ha provocado que haya un regreso. Después de la pandemia hay un regreso enorme en la cobertura. 1. 2. Quieren lograr un quinto para 150 niños y están 200 esperando haciendo fila. 200. Y de eso que te dice habilitar, por eso la frase de la gobernadora, haz lo que tengas que hacer, y estamos habilitando salones. Pero en el haz lo que tengas que hacer, tuve que ir a la colonia aquí en Mexicali a pararme enfrente de 472 padres de familia, que eran 800, porque ya ves que no vamos solos los mexicanos, siempre vamos con alguien. Y tuve que decir que en ese momento ya quedaban inscritos. ¿Cómo? Es que te voy a dar tu correo de Google for Education. Fue lo máximo. Nunca me preguntaron cómo, nunca, jamás. Ellos ya estaban inscritos. Al otro día fueron los informáticos a dar de alta en la computadora su correo y estaban, no saben ustedes la cara de extraordinariamente contentos del momento de tener un correo de gsolisb@edvc.mx. Ellos ya se sentían inscritos en línea, porque les dije, en esta escuela no hay cupo, pero hay un gran terreno y vamos a construir aquí las aulas. Mientras sucede, ¿qué te parece si llevas la educación en línea? No, ya no quieren entrar al aula. O sea, ya hay una cultura en la parte de la gente más sencilla que ustedes se puedan imaginar en Baja California. No le tiene miedo a la tecnología, tiene un teléfono, tiene una tableta y un teléfono todo quebrado, a lo mejor en algunas de las mejores ocasiones, y ahí hacen la tarea con sus padres. Tienen el acceso a la televisión, ya no le tienen miedo a la tecnología. Entonces eso nos ha dicho que están 1,200, nomás en 2 visitas que hice. Si lo hago público, la gente quiere estudiar, pero la gobernadora nos ha dicho, recupera las escuelas al 100%, eso es lo principal. Pero ya no vamos a poder detener lo que está en la ley, poder dar una educación mixta, a distancia, en línea, wherever. Entonces, estamos haciendo lo que tenemos que hacer, dando de alta. Ahora necesito tener así un búnker como este, con maestros, para que ya atiendan esos 5 grupos de primero, 2 de segundo, 2 de tercero, 2 de cuarto, y que los viernes tengan contacto con ellos, porque el director me va a prestar la escuela el viernes, deja descansar a los presenciales, se vienen los virtuales, te conocen y toda la semana, eso es lo que tenemos que hacer, improvisar, llegar, pero la cultura ya está, o sea, eso no va, batalla por los maestros y por otras cosas, no porque lo vas a tomar en línea, donde antes era imposible pensar en decirle, vas a estudiar en línea, no, pero va a superar. Gracias.
Muy bien. Respectful of the times, and President Mata has to leave fairly soon to the airport. I'd just like to try to bring some closing thoughts together and then ask each of you, see if you have any additional remarks. I think that it is obvious and undeniable that digitalization of education and higher education is happening. It's going to continue. I think how much you do and how you incorporate it is going to depend on your stage of development. The degree of preparedness is going to depend on what your institutional mission happens to be, your capacity to innovate, the degree to which you have recognized the culture that is required, not only for a one-off or short-lived effort, but a long-term effort. And above all the procedures, systems, and data that is required if we are to capture the next stage of development, which of course has to involve our communities, but is going to be focused on learning. I think it's, yes, teaching is important, content is important, but in the end, it's how much have they learned and how much is this learning impactful in terms of the communities where they live. So I think again, it's inevitable, but it's not automatic. It depends on the deliberate work that you engage so that you can move your organization forward. So let's do just one round of closing thoughts and reflections. Jim, would you like to lead off or? Yeah.
And I'll keep my comments brief. I know we're limited on time as well. So I would say this, first of all, thanks again for having us, and thanks for the partnership with Blackboard Now Anthology. And I'm really proud of this institution for what you've been able to achieve. I think there's two things that stick out to me, generally speaking, that we have to have as far as mindsets going forward. One is a sense of curiosity. I mean, everywhere I've gone, if it's the institution that embraces curiosity or if it's individuals, that's what makes us innovate and get better and better. The curiosity, that's why we're here. We want to learn. And this is an academic environment. We want to learn and get better and better and better. And then I would also say, and this is what's hard at institutions, is culturally it's hard, but getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because if we're just going through the day and we're not bracing for what's ahead, and we're not challenging ourselves to look at data, to look at making changes for the institution that might be hard today. I mean, how many times have you heard, some of you, that you're going to, maybe it was at another institution, wouldn't be here, be some other institution, but you want to implement a technology, but you hear somebody say, I don't want to get involved because I'm going to retire in 3 years. I don't want to have to deal with that, right? I mean, if you haven't heard of it, I mean, you can appreciate the concept. That can't be the mindset going forward. It's what is best now. What can we do now for the students? Be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you can do that, and that's hard for faculty as well, then I think great days are ahead, and they always will be for CETIS here, because this is a fine institution, a great global brand. Thank you.
I agree with you, Jim. And I would say that digital mindset institutions, or to have a digital mindset, is not a place that you arrive to. No, it's a way of understanding your environment. And the other day I read the term that you have to be, there's this term to have emotional intelligence. No, you have to have now environmental intelligence in order to understand what's going on, for it to be used and transformed digitally. So that's how we have to have that. I think that's the way to really enhance a digital transformation in any institution. It's about the mindset. The tools are already there.
Solamente agregar que el gran reto, como lo mencionan, es que los alumnos tienen una capacidad extraordinaria de aprendizaje. Nuestro reto está en la enseñanza, y eso es lo que nos vamos a esforzar, en aprovechar todas estas herramientas tecnológicas para que nuestros docentes tengan una extraordinaria dinámica para la enseñanza, porque estamos seguros que nuestros alumnos, lo que les pongas, como lo pongas, en el escenario que lo tengas, ellos van a aprender. Están esperando que nosotros tengamos mejores formas de enseñanza. Ahí se nos vamos a esforzar. Muchas gracias.
We'd like to thank all the members of our panel, and we have a gift from CETIS University coming up for each of you. Okay. We hope the jacket fits. If not, we can change it. Okay, and for our guests also from Argentina and Colombia, we also have something. We just to speed it up and yeah. Muy bien, y así es como damos concluido este panel. Muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros y sigamos festejando CETIS. Buenas tardes.